and gentlemen, welcome back to Little Man, Big Conversations. Man, I know I've had some guests on here already. Each one of them has told their unique perspective on their individual lives and or careers. This tonight, man, I gotta tell you, I am way out of my depth here. I am punching way above my weight here. This man has done me a complete favor. He's a friend of mine, but this is a complete honor. Ladies and gentlemen, a man that most of you will know, but if not, this man right here is a trailblazer. He's set to do big things. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the one, the only, the loose ledge, Adam Brooks. Adam, how the hell are you, man?
What's up, brother? Geez, you really pumped my tires up there, didn't you? You made me sound like bloody, I don't know, Brad Pitt or Leonardo DiCaprio or something, some massive star.
Well, I'd be you as a Brad DiCaprio or a Leonardo Pitt. That's their names, right?
I've never been pumped up like that, so I appreciate that.
We heard it here first, man. Me and Adam are going on the road. I'm going to be his hype man. I'm going to be the Lilo Rush to his Bobby Lashley. And we're going to...
I look like Bobby Lashley, too.
So that's it. We're going to hit the road, man. Again, thank you so much for giving me your time. I know the wrestling world has been explosive for you lately, but at the same time, it was also, speaking of tires, you've had the brakes slammed on those tires real hard for you lately. But I appreciate the time that you've given me. The first thing I want to say to you, man, is I ask all my guests, how the hell do we know each other? And do you remember the first time that we hung out?
I do. So, so in regards to the wrestling world, like, everything was all gung-ho, and now everything's on a big pause, you know?
Yeah.
So that's frustrating. That's annoying. Luckily, you've caught me pretty early in this whole quarantine isolation bit, and I haven't lost my mind too badly just yet.
Oh, good.
So hopefully I don't come off too depressed and annoyed in this podcast, because I feel okay at the moment.
Yeah, good.
And I try not to watch the news because I just get angry, you know?
Yeah,
3 months, 6 months, you know, it's like, I don't want to hear it. Just wake me up when all this is over.
Man, I totally agree, man. The news out there, man, every day it changes. It goes from 500 people to 100 people to 25 people to bars, taverns, casinos, everything, you name it, it's closed. But hey,
yeah,
most important thing is that even though we don't have a gym, even though we don't have the casino, and even though our locals are closed, it is helpful to know that I can still go down the road and see Mary Sue and get my damn hair done.
There you go. Well, see, I got my hair done before all of this, because I thought that I was going to be on pay-per-view, and then that went to shit. So my hair's all sorted for however long this is going to take.
Well, if anyone sees Adam walking down the street, you'll know that he is looking in fine form.
Oh, dude, I'm not shaving until this is all done. I've told my misso, I'm like, I ain't shaving nothing until this is all over. I want to see like what my beard looks like, and you know, stuff it, whatever.
For those listening, you can interpret him not shaving to the best of your ability. I'll leave that open to interpretation. But
yeah,
Adam, I remember meeting you. I believe it was at a Venom show. You had flown up to Queensland. You were fighting the champion at the time, Tim Cade. And I remember sharing a locker room with you, and the boys were very hyped up to meet you. But it was my first time that I'd ever shared a locker room with you and met you. Do you remember that show? And do you remember us having our initial first conversation?
I do. It was the first time I wrestled. I think it's the first and only time I've actually wrestled with Venom. Actually, it was a fun little place. And then meeting you. So I remember you tried to add me on my personal Facebook page.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And a lot of people do this. And I feel I need to tell this so that people don't think that I'm a dick.
Sure. Yep.
But if I don't know somebody and they try to add me on like my personal page, where, you know, I tend to use that for friends and family and all of that.
Sure.
I'll just leave it.
Yeah.
You know? So if there's people that are listening that think, oh, why is Adam not accepting me? He must be a dick. You know, it's not that at all. It's just I don't know you. So if I ever meet you and you turn out to be a bloody ledge and someone that makes me giggle, then hey, you'll probably get accepted, and I know that you're a good person. So
Well, I'm glad I passed the audition.
I remember, like, we were just hanging out at backstage, whatever, and we were just chatting, and then yeah, I said to you, I said, brother, like, I know you tried to add me. This is my rule. Don't worry, like, you seem like a little legend. You know, it's all good. And then, you know, obviously you've made it onto the personal page, and every now and then we chat, and then every time I see you, you know, you get a big hug and all of that shit. So yeah, that's the first time that we met, man. And did you come out with us that night, or was it AWA? I think it may have been AWA you came out.
Yeah, it was the AWA show. And for full disclosure, so it doesn't sound like I'm being a marky mark here, the reason I added you was because I was helping out with the production and the sound, so I needed to get in contact with you and find out, hey, need to get this guy's video, need to get this guy's music. It's a big deal. I want to make sure I have the right one. And damn, if I didn't go hunting, I ended up pulling down about 3 different entrance videos I found online, and I still ended up with the wrong one.
Did you?
Yeah. I remember overhearing you're at the desk, and I was just off to the side. I think I was putting my gear on, and you had said to the guy that was minding the desk at the time, oh, what video they got for me? And they played it, and it came up on the screen, and I remember you sort of went, yeah, that's the wrong one. So out of the 3, I still chose wrong.
It happens, you know. It's whatever. Who cares?
But yeah, no, I remember the second time we met. That was the one I came out with because we all came back to where I was living, and then we all went out and hit the road, hit the town after that. But that was the first time we met. Yes, and you've always been kind of good to me, and you're good to me tonight for coming on this podcast and doing me a real solid. So I really appreciate you coming on, man.
No workers, dude. I'm happy to have a chat. So it's all good, man.
So that's how we know each other. But take me back for your career now. So this is the history of Adam Brooks, and I don't just mean your career, because wrestling has and still does in this day and age play a huge role in your life. But take me back to the origins of the man known as Adam. Were you always a Melbourne-based boy, or did you travel around as a kid?
Nah, always Melbourne, dude. Always Melbourne. I've grown up in a little suburb called Dingley Village. I get the announcers to announce me from Dingley because the crowd laughs because, I don't know, Dingley sounds funny. So.
Sounds like something out of like a fantasy novel or something. They all came from Dingley Village, sir.
Yeah. Like.
All right. So you're a Dingley boy through and through. You've always been there? You haven't ever moved around Melbourne? You stayed true to the village?
When I was young, it's always been, you know, I grew up here in Dingley. Okay.
And so you were growing up there in Dingley. What was school like for a young Adam? Did you have a good school life? Was it rough, or was it pretty smooth sailing?
So primary school was good. Primary school was fine. I loved primary school. And then high school, I wasn't at high school very long. I left school when I was 15 years old. So
wow, what made you leave?
Dude, I hated it.
Really?
I hated it. And it's not because I was bullied or anything like that. I just hated school. I thought it was such a waste of time.
Right.
And growing up now and looking back, it's silly that I left so early, you know, but you know, at the time I hated it, and all I wanted to do was start earning money and working. Okay. So my mum was like, well, you know, let's find out what you want to do, and maybe we can go down the apprenticeship route. Right. So I had no clue what I wanted to do. So I went to a course at TAFE. And the course, it let me still do like the basic maths and English and stuff.
Yeah.
But it also let me do a majority of different trades. So I got to try carpentry, plastering, cooking, painting, glazing. I think I did tile laying. And then, so I did glazing.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the glazing class, which is working with glass.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed it. And I said to my teachers and stuff, I really like this glazing stuff, you know, when it's time for work experience to come around. Because I think we did work experience like, I want to say 4 times a year.
Right. Okay.
I said, when work experience comes along, can you please put me with a glazier? Because I quite enjoy it. And I did work experience with those dudes, and then I didn't go back to TAFE because they kept me there for 6 weeks, and then they put me on, and I got to do an apprenticeship.
So your family was supportive of your decision to the best of their ability at that time as a 15-year-old kid saying, hey, I don't want to be at high school anymore. Was that a hard conversation to have with your parents at the time, being 15, and obviously the concept of not fulfilling schooling for you back then was okay, but it sounds like they were pretty supportive of you.
No, they were super supportive. Like, and see, my mum left year 10, so she would have been 16. Dude, my dad left school when he was 14 because he used to go and help out his dad on the farm. They owned a market garden, or my pa, he owned a market garden, and my dad was just super young, and he'd go help my pa.
Okay.
So I feel, and I don't say this in a negative way, that like maybe because I knew that my dad left school so early, and I could see that, oh, you know, if my dad left school at 14 and he has a roof over our head, why do I need to waste my time at school? I can do the same thing, you know?
Sure, yeah.
I think maybe I grew up with that sort of mentality, whereas I look back now and it's like, oh, you know, my sister completed school, she went to uni, you know, and she's doing this really cool job. You know, maybe I should have done that. But the way that my path has gone in regards to wrestling anyway, I don't think school would have mattered anyway. You know, how far I got in school, I don't think it would have mattered because of my love and my passion for wrestling.
Yeah, I don't see the trainers coming in and going, hey, I want to sign up to be a wrestler. And they're like, all right, but first let's do some algebra. I think you're pretty safe.
Yeah. So, like, it's always good to have something to fall back on, though. So, like, if you do something really well in school, and then you want to be a wrestler, and unfortunately it doesn't work out, at least you have that to fall back on. In my case, at least I have glazing to fall back on, which hopefully I don't have to. Yeah. But it's there.
Sure, yeah. So you mentioned your sister. Is it just you and your sister in terms of siblings, or do you have more siblings?
Nah, just me and the younger sister, man.
All right, so you two are causing a ruckus there in the family home. Your sister's staying in school. You're out there glazing. You're 15. You're doing the TAFE work. You're doing the glazing. Is this around the time that you now get exposed to pro wrestling, or was it earlier on, or did it happen? Did it hit you later?
Nah, man. So we got to backtrack. I first saw wrestling when I was 9 years old.
Oh, okay.
So
what was it you saw?
So we were hanging out in the street, and I was just with some of my neighbors, and we went down the road to another neighbor's house, and he goes, I've got this tape. It's called wrestling. And I was like, okay, cool. He was halfway through watching it, and then he puts in this tape, and he was halfway through watching WrestleMania 16 in the year 2000.
Okay, yep.
And the match that he was up to was the 3-way ladder match with the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So I'm sitting there and I'm going, what in the world is this?
Yeah.
And who's this guy with rainbow hair, baggy pants? Oh, man, he just did this gnarly flip off the ladder, and then he hit his tailbone, and then the guy went through the table, and what in the world is this?
Yeah.
And then that moment is just when it grew. My first, I guess, dream was football, AFL. I was a really good footballer.
Okay.
But then the more and more I got obsessed with wrestling, the less I was interested in football. So one of my best friends, who I've known since kinder, who I'm still friends with, he was a big wrestling fan as well. And I didn't have cable, but he did. So he would tape Raw every Tuesday night. I think it used to be on here. Mm-hmm. He'd tape Raw every Tuesday night. Yep, sweet dude. I taped it. Come over after school and watch it.
Okay.
And he'd tape it all, Raw, all that. And then he found a local training school.
Right.
So he was 14 when he went to this school. And 14 getting thrown around a wrestling ring while your body's still developing. It's way too young, you know. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But he did it anyway, and then he didn't last because his back was always sore and his neck was always sore, and that's what happens when you first get into this. Yeah, yeah. Your body's not used to this shit, you know.
Of course.
So we'd mess around on the trampoline and stuff, and he saw that I loved it, and he was like, "Man, why don't you go to where I went and get trained? Like, maybe this is what you got to do." So I went there when I was 15 years old, and yeah, man, it's everything since then has been wrestling. I stopped playing football, and it's just been wrestling. Like that school shut down for a year,
right?
And I didn't have anywhere else to go, and I knew that one day something would come up. So like after school or after work and everything, like I would go and run around this big park that we have. It's like a 6-kilometer national park thing. I'd run around that every day, just knowing that, you know, I'll be in a wrestling ring again one day. And then, so that place came back when I was 18. So I went straight back there. They remembered me. And yeah, ever since then, man, it's just been to where we're at now, you know. And so that company was PCW. That's where I first went and got trained.
So you signed up at 15, even though your mate was 14 and he did his back out. You signed up a year later.
Yep.
At 15 years of age, and were you training pretty much twice a week down there, or what was training like for you at 15?
I think I was there once a week because they would do like beginners classes and then like a intermediate class.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd be there once a week. I think it's like 3 hours.
So you had once a week 3-hour classes. Do you remember the first time where you signed on the proverbial dotted line? You signed up. You said, "I want to do this." Do you remember your first training session?
Yeah.
Do you remember taking your first bump, and what was that sensation like for you?
Yeah. So the way this school worked was they would do 2 assessment classes to kind of see if this is for you type of thing.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
And if they didn't think that it was, I guess you just keep doing the assessment classes until they think that it is for you, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So I did the 2 assessment classes, and then they put me into the beginner's class. But that first bump, I remember the guy was kneeling down, you know, crouching down, and he goes, "All right, then you do this, and then you just snap," you know?
Yeah.
And I went in there, I was all cocky and stuff because I was like, yeah, like my friend, he showed me how to do this on the trampoline. Like I know how to take a bump. I know how to take a bump. It's easy. So anyway, I crouched down, and instead of snapping, I throw myself out.
God.
I don't know anything about tucking my chin or any of that. So I just throw myself out, and it's just like oh, it's that feeling like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Is that what it's meant to feel like?
Did you have any survival mechanics kick in where your body was sort of freaking out, going, "Hey, I don't want to be. This is new to me. I don't like the fact I'm being aimed at the floor." Did you have that sort of jittery first session, or was it because of your love for sport and because of your history in doing AFL? Did you have that much of a mechanic where your body was sort of wincing out and just sort of pulling out, doing the move, or did you find it pretty much a simple process of just sort of understanding it a bit more freshly?
No, I think I understood that, like, okay, I don't think that was right because it felt like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, no, you've got to snap, and then it won't hurt. Tuck your chin and snap. So then I got the hang of that, and I was like, okay, yeah, that feels a bit better. And then I remember later on when I'd been bumping a little bit more, and we were taking Triple H knees, where he'd like shoot them off and then he jumps and he does that knee where he jumps and he kind of turns.
Yeah.
So we were taking those.
Right.
And I was being real scared about it. And I kept hurting myself on the bump and I wasn't committing. I was like, and then I got yelled at. The guy was like, stop being a pussy. This isn't how you do it. And he yelled at me. And it really pissed me off. So then I was like, all right, like, fuck you. This is, I'm going to commit and I'm going to absolutely attack this bump now. And then boom, I full took it, like attacked it, snapped it. It felt beautiful. And then he goes, see? He goes, you didn't be a pussy. You committed. And it feels better.
Yeah.
And that kind of always stuck with me. And it's like, you just got to commit. And whenever young kids ask for advice or anything, where I go down and train now, whenever if I ever see something, I'll just put a little bit of input in. But yeah, you just got to commit. If you're scared and you don't attack it, that's when you're going to get hurt. Really,
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you freak out and you think you're going to get hurt, that's usually the time. And hey, you're going to get hurt because you're thinking about it too much, and that's how accidents happen. But you've committed. Speaking of commitment, you've committed to your bumps, you've committed to the high knee, and now you have committed to pro wrestling training. That school was only open for a year, but did you at any stage, was that company at that time doing any live events? Did you have a debut, or were you still just training at that point?
So they've come back now and they constantly run, but at the time when I was there, when I was 15, they used to do shows, and I'd go to some of the shows, but I didn't debut until I was 18. So
right, okay.
I debuted on their student shows, which they call their student shows slam shows.
Right.
So yeah, I debuted on one of those. I want to say February 2010.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you stayed with that company for a year. You're about 16 now, and you don't debut till you're 18. Do you immediately hit up what would become and what is now still known as Melbourne City Wrestling? Do you hunt them down during your off-peak of training, as it would be, or does life happen and then wrestling sort of comes back into the fold?
Nah, so I went back to training when they reopened at 18, and then I was there for like, I don't know, 6 months or something, and then I started I did my first match, and I don't believe MCW were around then. I think MCW may have come in, I want to say late 2010, I think. Yeah. So I was I wrestled this one match, and then a promoter in Adelaide saw me, and I think the guy who I wrestled, he was like a veteran guy. Mm-hmm. His girlfriend put me over to this promoter in Adelaide, like saying, "Yo, this kid's decent, whatever." Mm. So during the week, I got a message from this guy saying, "Yeah, I'm from, I live in Adelaide. I'm running a show. I want you to come up." And I was like, "Oh man, like people want me to wrestle interstate already? Like, like I'm the man, like, yeah, so I accepted that, and I drove myself all the way up there, and then there was only 20 people at this show.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. And so my first match was like 6 minutes. Then my second match for this company in Adelaide, they wanted me to wrestle for 20 minutes in a 20-minute draw. And I was like, whoa, like,
what?
You guys realize this is only my second match? And like, they're like, nah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
You'll be fine, yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And then the guy that I was wrestling, he goes, yeah, so I'm thinking, you know, we do a match like RVD Jerry Lynn. He goes, have you seen that? I go, of course, yeah. You do realize this is my second match. He goes, yeah, you'll be fine, man. You'll be fine. We'll do this, you know. And I'm like, oh, God, okay.
Yeah.
So I go out there and I somehow survive that 20-minute RVD Jerry Lynn classic.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I kept being brought back to that place for 8 months.
Wow.
No pay, no flights covered, none of that. It was before any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I was just excited to wrestle and have an opportunity, and I'll forever be grateful for, Joel Bateman, who was the promoter, for giving me that opportunity. Like, I will always be grateful for those dudes just giving me a platform,
Yeah.
Everyone needs to be like that. You got to do those drives. You've got to do those experiences where you're sleeping in your car, all that shit. Like, I did that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, during that period is when I met Matt Silver, who has gone on to be Buddy Murphy in WWE.
Yeah.
So he's doing all right. But,
He's doing okay. He's cutting it fine.
But yeah, like, he just saw something in me, I guess.
Right.
And he took me under his wing, and we just got super close, like best friends, like brothers, like legit, like we're like super, super close. And he was wrestling for RCW at the time.
Okay.
In Adelaide, and he mentioned me to them, and they said, yeah, all right, let's give this dude a shot. So October 2010, I debuted for RCW. I wrestled Chris Basso, and I have been with them ever since now.
Right, okay.
And then after the RCW stuff, I believe MCW, they transitioned from being ACW. And then again, Matt was like, this kid's good. I want him with me. He can be like my little protege type deal. And yeah, we just went from there, and I've been with MCW ever since. So,
right. So
that's kind of the beginning of everything.
Yeah, well, man, you're already traveling the roads, and arguably, I think that's one of the best features, and I will argue over it. I think it's one of the best features, and it really does tests your integrity and your stamina, really, to travel those roads, to find that venue, to get in that building, to scout it out, to then go and plan the match, to then help set up everything, to then pull it all down, to then drive back in that road. And like you said, sometimes, hey, man, I didn't book a hotel. Or, hey, man, that place is way too far. I'm just going to crash in my car. I'll hit the airport in the morning. Yeah. Wrestlers have got to be a jack of all trade, man. Sometimes we've got to act like homeless people, do things for free for a sandwich and sleep in our car. Other times we're getting put in hotels and we're flying around the world. It varies at the best of times. Sometimes it's right what you need. Sometimes, hell, man, I do not want to be doing this show tonight. But you did the road traveling second show in. Were you prepared for that drive? How long was that drive for you? And were you excited? Were you nervous? Like, what was that first hitting that road and driving down? Did it feel like, hey, I'm sort of becoming a wrestler now? Like, this is what it's all about. This is what I've read or seen. Was that your feeling taking that first drive down?
Yeah, like I was like, all right, like this is that first road trip. You know, this is what they do in like WWE, like they travel the roads and stuff. Like, yeah, this is, you know, I'm doing this. But I asked a few of my friends to come along because I didn't know these people. I didn't know these promoters, you know. So I just had some friends come along with me, and we did the drive. And then we all pitched in for a hotel because the company wasn't going to hook me up with a hotel, you know. So yeah, man. So it's about 8 hours. So I used to do.
Wow.
I did that drive for 3 years.
Wow. How often was that? How often was that journey down to those shows? Was it every month?
Yep. Usually I was in Adelaide once a month for 3 years.
Wow. So once a month, you're like, man, it's petrol day. Got to make that 8-hour drive. But did you drive with people every time to sort of swap over and make sure you had that 8-hour trip, or did you gun it yourself on some solo adventures?
At first, it was always by myself.
Oh, wow.
And then I met Matt, and then me and him would just drive down to RCW all the time.
Yep.
Together, and then there'd be the odd occasion where he wasn't there, but I was, so I just cruise up by myself. I'd done it numerous times.
Yeah.
And then once he left and he went to WWE, that's when the flying and stuff happened.
Yeah, for sure.
It was still out of my own pocket at the time, but I think I was just over driving.
And I don't blame you. Once a month doing that 8-hour journey, double that up, 16 hours there and back again. Plus, being asked to do 20 minutes on top of that, 16 and close to 16 and a half hours, man. I do not blame you for asking for a flight that may have cut that down to about 2 hours.
Yeah. So, but like, it's just cool. Like you keep doing those things, and then you reap those benefits now, like I don't pay for travel. I don't pay for places where I have to stay. Like, and I say this to a lot of younger wrestlers. They'll always be like, how do I get more exposure? And I'll be like, dude, you got to travel. You've got to, at first, you've got to make your own way to these places.
100%. Yeah.
And just build that name. And that's when you can be like, hey, help us out now because I've done this much for you, or I benefit this much, or I put this much effort in, or whatever, So yeah, but like I still enjoy doing long drives like that. Like when I was in America for 3 months, mid last year, dude, they were, we did a trip. I wrestled in North Carolina, and I had to get back to Florida. So I'd been on the road since Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
What year was this?
2019.
Okay. Yep. So recent. Yeah.
Last year. Yep. And I wrestled in North Carolina, and then I go to the promoter. Okay, yeah, cool, man. Like, I don't have any flight details or hotel details or anything yet. And he goes, oh, no, it's all cool. I've got you in this car with all the other dudes going back to Florida. And I'm like, all right. Like, lucky I've done this when I was young, whatever. Let's do it. And it was a car full of good dudes. So it was an, 8-hour trip back to Orlando. So,
man.
Those things, like, I think we did a trip LA into Tijuana, Mexico. I think that was about 3-4 hours, like, whatever. You got to do these things, man.
Man, I think it tests the grit. Like you get exposed to it earlier on like you did, and I think you have more of an acceptance and appreciation for that journey. It doesn't become as time-consuming and, I guess, aggravating when you might have had a few local shows under your belt, maybe a year's worth of local shows. Then you get the call, hey, come to Adelaide, and you make that first drive after a year in. You're kind of hesitant, you're kind of hating it, but you had it the other way around. You were second show in, and man, you made that 8-hour drive. And I think from what it sounds like is that it opened up a world of appreciation. And honestly, it sounded like you didn't even really mind doing that trip. But I think it all became from the fact that you had that at such an early age. Do you recommend, if someone's starting out now, do you recommend if they get the heads up to, hey, you need to travel up here, do you recommend that they make that drive if they're able to do so, or do you recommend flying?
Drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
Okay. Yeah.
100%. Unless, I mean, look, if someone wants to pay for their own flights, that's fine. Like, cool. But I think you have to do the drive early on so that you can get used to it potentially later on in your career. Dude, like, I'll have Matt call me when he's on the road. And
cool.
I'll be like, oh, yeah, where you going? Oh, Stanford. Oh, yeah, cool. How long's that? Oh, 3 hours. Oh, yeah, cool. You know? It's just you've got to do it, because if you ever want to get to like a WWE or something, they're still on the road driving.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I think that still tests the grit. It really does. It sort of sets the tone for your appreciation moving forward, man. But you've made those drives, and you're still making the drive now. You are driven to perform at MCW. You have Matt by your side. He is training you. You are being his protege on the show. What was it like cutting your teeth down at MCW? And were you training for a while under the tutelage of Matt before you debuted there, or were you his manager, so to say, getting out there and getting the live crowd exposure? How did that sequence of events work?
Yeah, so I was training under him, and then he put me forward to those guys, and it just really went from there. I was his protege, and then we were a little group until he left.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Like, that's really the early story of MCW.
Yeah. So were you managing for live events? Were you managing him, or was it a case of, hey, I'm going to go out there and I'm training with him behind the scenes? But what was it like at live events? Were you associated with him at live events, doing managerial duties, or were you doing your own thing?
Nah, it was managerial stuff, and then worked into tagging with him.
Okay, yep.
And then,
Now, we fast forward now from 2010 to 2012, and now you have turned on your mentor, Matt. You hit him with a chair and you cost him his championship against Mike Peterson.
Yeah. So I would have turned on him early 2013. And then we had our final match together on a show in April 2013. That was his idea. He said, I want to wrestle him before I leave. I want to do the honors for him. And then, he went on to the next chapter of his career, and mine started to take off.
From your perspective, knowing that your friend has been signed, obviously there is a feeling of admiration and a lot of feeling of love for your best friend to go, wow, man, you've cracked that glass ceiling. You're in there. You're in the fold now. Talk me through what it was like when he took that flight, and were you going back to MCW and having him not be in that locker room? How did you feel then? Did you feel like, all right, now it's time to make it on my own steam? Did you feel a bit lost, or were you feeling pretty good about the whole thing?
No, I was pretty good about it. Because I was like, right, he's gone. I'm on my own now, you know? And that's how I looked at things. And I sort of knew the direction that they were going, and I knew that the ball was in my court, sort of thing.
So it fired you up?
Yes, 100%. So I was just ready to get in there and just kill it.
Right. So this is where you start floating around the main event in MCW. You start having these like absolute caliber matches with guys like Carlo Cannon and Slex. In 2013, you're approached by Dowie James, and you create a group called the Loose and the Reckless. Where the hell did that name come from? Where did the loose ledge come from?
Oh, God. Yeah. So we were on it. It was Matt's last trip at RCW, right? And me, him, and a few of the other boys, we thought we'd make a weekend out of it. So anyway, I got up to some antics the night before, and they were like, "Man, you should call yourself this." And it was the loose C word at the time.
Right. Yeah. Cowboy. Loose cowboy. Yeah.
And I was like, geez, that's pretty good. They're like, because what you did last night, Brooksy, you should do it. And I think it was more of a rib that they're like, he's not going to wear that shirt on a show.
Yeah.
But I was young and I didn't know, or I don't think they were trying to rib me. I don't know. But I was like, yeah, whatever. So I wore this shirt out during the show and a few people were like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, and I popped some of the veteran guys like Rocky Monero and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then, obviously Matt, he got over there and he was like, look, if you ever want to get over here, you might want to drop the C word out of that.
Right.
So, yeah, that makes sense. So I was calling everyone a ledge anyway, like I still do. And I was like, man, maybe I'll just do loose ledge. And then, I did. And that kind of stuck. But like now I'm sort of trying to phase that out slightly because it's people overseas don't really understand what that means, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now we're just going with like the greatest legend of all time because people understand that more.
Yes, the gloat. Yeah.
Yes. But the whole thing with Dowie, I thought we were going in. So this is me being young. I thought we were going in this one direction, and I was like on the cusp of like doing this stuff. And then they go, oh, we're going to do this thing with you and Dowie, and I was like, oh, like I didn't really want to do it.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't think he did either.
Wow. Okay.
But I think both of us were just so, I guess, frustrated with what they were doing with the both of us. We were like, you know what, stuff it. Let's just make our stuff the best stuff on the show.
Right.
Like we didn't ask for this, we didn't want this, but we're going to make it the best. So I think we just kind of, that was our attitude. And we did some pretty good stuff as a tag team. Mm-hmm. Like we built quite a name for ourselves at MCW, hence why you've kind of bounced back and forth with it more recently. So yeah, we did that whole thing, and then like I was still really frustrated at MCW, just creative wise with things that were going on.
Right.
So I left. In I want to say like maybe at the end of 2014, I think I left. Yeah.
Right. So you do the tag thing with you and Dowie.
Yeah.
You end up winning the titles towards the end of 2013. Your reign, according to the dirt sheets here, your reign lasted for just over a year, 378 days. You dropped the belts, and then you decide to walk away.
Yeah.
So you were frustrated with creative at that standpoint. Yeah. Were you feeling burnt out knowing that you had just spent pretty much 4 years full time doing wrestling?
I don't think I was burnt out wrestling. Like I was still wrestling heaps, and my schedule's picked up more. Okay,
so you were still active
in recent years.
Yeah,
I was wrestling still all over the place, just except for MCW because I was just frustrated creatively, and then there was some other political stuff that I wasn't happy with, and I was young. I didn't handle it the best. Yeah, cool, whatever. But then 8 months later, we sat down and we chatted, and I went to a show, and I was like, man, like I should be here,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we sorted it all out, and then we went back there, and then it's been all sweet ever since. I'm that younger stuff matured me. Like creatively now, I don't care. Just I'll rock up. Tell me what you want me to do. I'll go out there. Let me wrestle. I'll kill it. Cool. Pay me. I'll go home. I'm just so much more chilled out now. I don't care about winning or losing or any of that. Just let me wrestle.
Yeah.
Who cares about storylines or belts or any of that bullshit?
Yeah. So you were feeling. So you came back to it. You took some time off. What was life like for you when you were taking that time off? Did you think, man, I'm still wrestling. I don't know if I want to go back there, but what was life for you when you weren't on the road, when you weren't doing these shows? Did you have time to sort of reassess and reevaluate now that you're doing these sporadic shows as opposed to being religiously down at MCW?
I mean, I was still doing my thing at other places, and I kept my eye on what they were doing. And then that I noticed some certain things they were doing and certain people they were using, and I'd compare myself to them.
Right.
And I'd be like, all right, maybe it's time to have a chat. Because I was really close with one of the guys that used to book.
Okay.
He saw something in me super early. Like in 2011, he was pitching to put the MCW belt on me, you know?
Oh, right. Okay.
He always saw something in me, and he's not there anymore.
Right.
But I wanted to sit down and just hear him out, just because I had a lot of respect for him, you know? Like during the time he left, because he took a hiatus as well, I would go to him and be like, hey, I have this promo. Can you help me? So he respected me and I had respect for him. So, you know, he's the reason that I went back, and then, you know, the creative had sort of changed a little bit and I could trust him. So yeah, it kind of just went from there, man.
Right. So you're back in the fold. But what's life like for you outside the ring? Do you start around this time? Do you start to reassess your personal life? You've gone, all right, I need to take a little bit of a breather from MCW. I'm still doing these sporadic shows, but what's the life like when you're not on the road? Do you come home? Do you start developing things outside the ring, or is it just pretty much wrestling 24/7 and life takes a second place?
Well, I got involved with a bird around that time. So, I mean, I guess I had that outside of like an MCW or something, but
yeah.
You know,
was she a fan? Did she know who you were and what you were doing, or was it just a complete unknown?
No, she was in the business.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. We'll keep it at that. Yep. Fair enough. Say no more. All right. So she's in the business. She knows all about you. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So you developed a relationship with a coworker, I guess, to the best degree. You guys start dating for a while. Do you guys end up on shows together, or is it more like you do your career, I'll do mine, but hey, we both understand this is how the business and this is how it works?
No, we were on shows together, and then we ended up doing some tag stuff together, some intergender stuff.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. So what was that experience like? Was that different knowing that you had not only a coworker, but now seemingly a partner, quite literally, both in the tag sense of the wrestling world, but also in your personal life? Was that a different thing to you, or was it, hey man, it's the same thing, it's a show, we'll just treat it like business is business?
I think it was just business as usual. It's like, you know, I'll do my thing, you do your thing, and then we just go back, you know, we travel back home together afterwards.
Okay. Yeah.
You know? But then when we would tag, it was actually kind of cool because like we would discuss, you know, maybe we'll try this, we'll do this, Right. And then just like from a psychology standpoint, it was cool. It was a learning curve for me, you know, like, okay, this is a female. How can we make this make sense? Yep. Because, you know, intergender stuff, there's a different psychology to it. So I guess it was really cool to learn, or to try to understand and learn the psychology of intergender type stuff. Right.
So was it around this time that you take your first trip internationally? Because you've been bouncing around Australia at this point. You've been doing shows in Melbourne. You've been doing shows, I want to say, in South Australia. You've been bouncing around Sydney. But was this around the time for you that you remember taking that first international trip to the grand old US of A? Was it around this time?
So this is ironic how everything's actually worked out, but I went to America for the very first time it would have been April 2013. I remember it was 2 days after me and Matt wrestled. So
okay. Yep.
I went there to do a tryout seminar camp with ROH.
Okay, right.
And it's just ironic how everything's kind of worked out.
Yeah.
So I did that, but then in 2015, I went overseas again for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I did the indies and stuff there.
Okay. And
so
what was that?
The first time I actually wrestled on shows overseas.
Right. And what was that? So that was your first experience since 2013. Was the system over in the States vastly different to what you'd been used to, or was there some similarities there for you?
I want to say at the time it was very similar. It was, I was working. I mean, I was pretty lucky to work on certain shows,
right.
But some of them were still small shows. But some of the bigger shows that I worked on during that trip was like we drove into Canada to wrestle on Tommy Dreamer's House of Hardcore. That was kind of big.
Yeah, definitely.
I did. Remember that Global Force Wrestling that Jarrett tried to start up?
Oh, yeah, that was coming out of the back of name escapes me, Impact in TNA?
Well, yeah, I think he left TNA.
Yeah.
And he tried to start up this Global Force thing. So I got to wrestle on 2 of those Global Force shows.
Mm-hmm.
I did FIP, which is like the sister company to Evolve.
Right. Okay.
Because Evolve was always like a big goal that I wanted to try do, but I guess that's not happening anytime soon. But yeah, I got to work on some pretty decent stuff then, but it was very much the same as Australia. Like that first trip, the House of Hardcore trip.
Yeah.
Dude, 8-hour drive into Canada, like.
Right.
Yeah. That trip, I stayed with a guy called Kevin Keenan, who he used to be a referee in WWE. Really cool dude. He came down for he did a few shows in Melbourne, and he was like, look, if you're ever overseas, let me know. There's a bed at my place, man. I'll help you get booked.
Wow.
And like, he was awesome, dude. All he wanted for 6 weeks of staying at his house was a T-shirt. Didn't need me to pay him nothing. Absolute legend. He's the man. Love him.
Are you still in contact with that guy today?
Yeah.
Wow. That's some honesty right there, man. That's the good side of the business. Do it all for the T-shirt. Crash at someone's house, do the shows. That's how it should be, man. So you're in Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada for the House of Hardcore 14. Shortly after then, you travel down the road. You're in North Carolina for PWX.
Yes.
After that, you hit up Florida. You're in Maryland. You're in New Jersey. Then you're back here for House of Hardcore 15. You've come back home to Melbourne.
Yeah.
What was that small stint of American shows like? Did it all happen like in the blink of an eye where you're like, man, I don't have time to appreciate it? Or did it sink in when you finally hit home turf and went, wow, what a whirlwind of an experience that was?
Yeah, I think it hit when I got home because I was only there for 6 weeks, but I was wrestling every single weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude, I landed and I was like, oh, man, like I think I did something pretty decent at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just all right. I'm back home now.
Right.
Let's focus on the next goal.
Yeah. So the next goal for you is you come home. You come home to MCW. You have a brief stint doing the tag teams again. Then you turn on your partner and you win one of the MCW championship, which is now referred to as the Inter-Commonwealth title.
Yeah, man. Was
that your first big moment for having like a singles run championship, knowing full well that this was at the place where you had started your career with your best friend, with your former trainer? Was this one of the most memorable moments for you in your career when you'd won your first singles belt, or was it a case of, hey, business as usual?
Well, it wasn't the first singles one. The first singles one, the first, I want to say singles one with some sort of like a recognition, I guess, was probably Warzone belt and the RCW belt. Winning the Warzone belt was really cool because it was like, okay, these guys have got faith in me. So that was really cool. And then the RCW belt, again, like that was really cool because they had faith in me. And then just a small part of me, I mean, it comes across as a bit marky, but like Matt never had the RCW belt. So it's kind of like cool. Like, you know, he used to wrestle for this place and he was really, really good, but, you know, he never had the chance to have this, but, you know, I do. Like, this is a cool little goal, you know? But then, yeah, the MCW Inter-Commonwealth belt, that's I mean, again, like, it comes across like a little bit marky, but, like, that belt still today, it means a lot to me because I feel that me and Dowie really, really tried to put that belt on the map. You know, like I can't remember who had the main MCW belt at the time, but me and him both knew we're like, these dudes in the main event aren't touching us. That was our attitude. You know, like let's make our stuff the best.
Yep.
And I think we accomplished that. You know, like. And majority of the guys who have held that belt since, I want to say majority except one of them, have represented that belt really, really well.
And that's the end of part 1 with the loose ledge Adam Brooks. Hey, hope you've been enjoying this episode thus far. Don't worry, next week we're going to hit you up with part 2. We're going to get much more into the nitty gritty, including him winning his first big championship with MCW and his eventual signing with Ring of Honor. Hey, if you haven't done so already, please like and follow Little Man Big Conversations on Facebook, at LMBC Podcast, on Instagram, at LMBC Podcast, and on Twitter, at LMBC_podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next week.